Hey, educators. Today we are going to talk about social emotional learning.
And as you may be aware of, educators, social emotional learning is an educational method that aims to foster or social and emotional skills in the school curriculum.
All right. So, hi, I'm Miss B, a ninth grade English teacher.
And I'm Miss G, a 10th grade social studies teacher.
And this is Teacher Life, an educator's toolbox of tips and tricks so you can have a successful school year.
Okay, educators, if you look at our slide and something you may have learned in school way back when you were in college, when we think about the whole child, there's this idea of concentric circles, meaning the child is in the center, and then surrounding that child are educators, family members, the community, and all of that is in support of the child. And so when you think about social emotional learning, that same concept comes into play. And so if you look at our slide here, the idea of social emotional learning has 6 components to it. And that is self-awareness, self-management, responsible decision-making, relationships skills, and social awareness. And this is something that the whole child can benefit from. And if you look at our chart here as well, and these sources I will link in the description. This is from Schoolhouse 302. It talks about the support system that surrounds that whole child. And so you have instruction that's supposed to be geared towards supporting that child academically. You have schools and school-wide practices. You have educators, of course, that fall within that. And then you have the home and the community. And so the idea is, as the child is engaged in learning, all these components should be in play to help foster and develop social emotional learning. Okay, so Ms. B, there are some concerns of late that have to do with our children and social emotional learning. And so they affect all these components that I have displayed here on our slide. That is school safety, mental health, student retention, as in students being held back. And when I'm thinking about retention also, it just came to mind that students are not retaining
Right.
information
Exactly.
and academic progress. And so, Ms. B, do you have anything to add to some of these concerns that we're going to talk about?
Yes, I definitely do. That whole idea of safe at school has become an extremely big problem
Mm.
uh, for me personally. The idea that I leave my home, I travel to this school, and from what it's from the news, all these reports on the news all over the country, that maybe I'm not safe at my job at a school. And
Mm.
that's been very disheartening this last couple of weeks. And so with that in mind, the knowledge that I'm not necessarily as safe as I thought I was has been really affecting my mental health. And I do believe the mental health of all school children who go to public schools. Yeah, so it's a problem. This idea of not being safe at school.
Agreed. There's a lot of speculation as to why social emotional learning with kids are sort of, or maybe their social emotional um, status, right, is not as ideal as it should be or could be. And some of the talk among teachers and among parents too is that since we had the pandemic and kids were at home, sometimes without parents, sometimes being parents themselves, um,
Mm,
without authority sometimes. And we know kids need structure and authority. And so these last 18 months of kids sort of managing themselves on their own, they may have missed, or many of them missed, the social component or the socialization that they get from coming to school, also
mm,
having structure in the environment, and being socialized by not just educators, but their peers, right?
right.
When you're in a large environment, you can't just do anything, you are socialized by others. And
Yes.
and so some of the discussion has been around um, students now coming back to school, getting into this environment, and some of that six decision making skills, the social component of social skills, self awareness, all those are sort of out of whack, and it's playing out in the classroom. And as you said earlier, it's causing concerns because behavior has become a major issue. Um, I see it personally in the lack of authority. I see it in more overt behavior towards kids, other kids or other students. I see students with a lot of mental health issues that also plays out in behavior. And of course, if the learner is not optimal, right, in these other areas, of course, it's going to affect their academics.
Definitely. And what I also noticed, and I don't know, because I know you have a lot more knowledge about social emotional learning than I do, but I also see kids just checking out as if they have given up.
Mm,
And that has been very disheartening,
mm,
in
mm.
addition to whatever other behavior issues that have manifested in the classroom.
Agreed. Agreed. I think, when they miss that socialization that has occurred, maybe then they don't have the skills. And I think this is where social emotional
Mm.
learning comes in as far as in the classroom.
So we need to, so what I'm hearing is maybe as educators, we need to stop and check into this idea of adding a little bit of social emotional learning into our classroom routines.
Okay.
Is that what I'm hearing, Miss G?
That's what you're hearing and you're seeing because our next slide talks about solutions. What,
Definitely.
what are some of the solutions that can be out here to help us support teachers and students alike? Because think about a teacher who's in a classroom with 35 kids, and let's say 15 of them have been displaying overt issues in that social emotional area, especially in behaviors. And
Mhm.
so this student is under duress and is struggling with the things that they're struggling with, but it also creates a situation where teachers begin to struggle because it's nonstop behavior issues being played out, emotional issues being played out. And I say that not to blame a child, you know,
Definitely, definitely.
because a learner is just experiencing these feelings. And so, when we're in the classroom, I'm thinking academics, we're here trying to do academics. But again, academics cannot move forward if kids are struggling. And so some of the solutions um, I would like to think about, hopefully teachers can
Mhm.
think about this as well, is definitely student and teacher support, right? Mental health support, hopefully students. I know in school we refer them to counselors, and then the counselors can, speak to parents and hopefully get them outside counseling if
And we also have that social worker that does assist scholars in most schools. So the
agreed.
counselor, we have the social worker.
And that social worker again could have referred to them to outside resources to help the student and their family deal with some of the emotional issues that they're facing.
What can we do?
What teachers can do is try to include some social emotional activities within the classroom.
Okay.
And so one such that I discovered just Googling is this program called the Character Playbook. All right. And the Character Playbook was started by the National Football League and the United Way, which is a charity across the United States that seeks to help people who are not doing as well in society.
Yes, yes.
And so
Okay.
the Character Playbook have put together this program, and it initially started out in middle school, but now, you know, any high school can use it because I've definitely used it myself. And through cultivating games and scenarios and classroom activities, students can learn about how to manage themselves socially and emotionally.
All right. So this looks like a great start to a social emotional learning program within a teacher's classroom.
Exactly. And this program is actually free. A teacher can go online and Google it, or sometimes your school may already have it included in some of the school apps. If you have like a clever classroom, like we do in our schoolhouse, in the clever classroom, there are tons of apps that the school pulls together. But
Okay.
if it's not in your clever classroom, you can Google it and it might come up under Everfi or the Character Playbook. And if you look at the screen, right, the Character Playbook taps into the 6 components of social emotional learning, right? So there are these scenarios where the student will go through information about self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship skills, and decision-making. And after they go through these scenarios at the end of the scenario, there is a little assessment, a 10-question assessment. And so once a student takes that 10-question assessment, then I, as the teacher, I come in and I look at their scores. And then, you know, later on, we could discuss it.
Discuss the results of the 10 question item.
Yes, ma'am. And
Okay.
so, and so I just put a little process on here so that you, as the educator, if you chose to add something like this to your classroom, and I always add no pressure because educators are already doing a lot. And so when you're in the building, as you know, Miss B, um, anything that has to do with students, any new improvement,
Mhm.
any situation that occurs, there's a new list, there's a new thing added to the list of what teachers need to do. And sometimes it becomes overwhelming. So this is the process, but I always say with no pressure. And I started this process maybe about 2 weeks ago, 2 or 3 weeks ago, where
Nice.
I had kids go into the self-awareness and they went through the scenario and then they took the self-awareness assessment. And once they were done with that assessment, I scored it and I put it in a chart. And fortunately, this is another component to the resources, the Character Playbook has a PowerPoint that goes with each lesson.
Do you show the PowerPoint after the student goes through scenarios or before?
After,
Okay.
because what I do is I looked at their scores and then I plugged it into a chart. And I'll link the description to MetaChart, which is a company that provides free charting for teachers. And like
Nice.
and like everything else, the basic is free. And if you want it to go up, you know, then it's a charge. But what I did with the results were I put it in a range, like students that, scored 50 to 70, you know, I put it in yellow, like a warning, so I don't want to put it in red, so paying attention to stuff like that is important because if a kid looks at it and they know, because they see their score, if they know they fell into, say, a 40, I don't want them to think, oh, bad,
Right. So that color of yellow, just a light warning.
Yes. And so it's like yellow, green, blue. And I put the chart up and I said, this is where we fell, guys. Some people, were in the blue and they're doing well. Some people are in the green and they're doing, awesome. And some people in the yellow that need some support. And then what I did was I went through the PowerPoint and we had a great guided discussion, you
Now,
know.
so it's guided. There's some questions in your PowerPoint.
Well, the PowerPoint is just basically telling you about the test. So one example would be, how do you know who you are? How do you, where do you get your identity? You know,
Mm-hmm.
and I actually printed out an identity chart I found online and I gave it to them as an opener so that they put their name in the middle and they put, things that are their identity. I'm a sister, I'm a brother, I'm a student.
Okay.
And so as we're discussing it we had conversations about who they thought they were, who I didn't know they were, as far as their identity, because some students were like, I'm the technician in my family. When my grandmother can't do something on the computer, she calls me,
Mm.
and then I had another student that said he's changing the identity for his family because his dad builds fixed roofs and he goes with him in the summer and it's so hot. And his dad was like, well, if you make sure you stay in school and you won't have to be doing this.
Right.
And he says, although I like that my father does this and stuff like that, but I don't want to be in the heat, so I'm going to be in school. But
Right.
it was a lot of dialogue about just trying to um, become familiar with who you are, being aware of some of the things that may or may not you may or may not like, you know, just
About yourself.
yes. So the
Mm.
first one was just self. Who are you? What are some of the things you like when you're out here? Are you being guided by external influences like your friends, or are you making your own choices? And are you, and just at the end of the class, we sort of came up with this, if somebody asks you to do something that's a friend, do a little 10-second and stop and say, are these, is this something I want to do? Or is this something I'm doing because of external influences? Because four of my friends are saying, come on, come on. So it was a nice exercise in slowing down. Well, first, trying to figure out who you are, your
Yes.
likes, your dislikes, but also, to slowing down the pace of taking in information and, acting right away, and there was tons more of great information in there, but it was a good discussion. I got to know students got to know me, and hopefully it'll work in the future. I'm going to try and do all of them, if time permits. But hopefully it will help them to exercise, get to know themselves, get some things out. But hopefully over the course of this course, for lack of a better word, we can develop some social emotional skills for learners.
Okay. So when you decided to do this, was it it was a one and done, meaning not the whole idea of the six activities over time, but did you have 1 or 2 days spread out? Did you take 2 days within a week so that we can get some ideas, like someone like myself? What I just would like to hear how you did, like, did you chunk it? Did you separate it, or they just came in, did the activity, talked about it, you scored it right then and there, and then you pulled up the PowerPoint all in 90 minutes?
Oh, of course not, girl. I it was definitely a two-part situation. And
Okay.
yeah, so I gave them as a closing one day in class, I gave them the activity online, which took about 20 minutes for them to go through the scenarios, read it, do the assessment. And so
Okay.
it took me about a week. And so I went in, I downloaded the PowerPoint, I put their score on it, and I put together a PowerPoint in that week. And then the following Friday, as a closure, maybe the last, half an hour of class, then we reviewed it.
Okay.
So I'm seeing that if I have this 6 components that I would do, it'll probably take me about 12 weeks to go through that,
Okay.
you
Good
know.
idea. After like a nice little short 30-minute activity, then the following week go over those results.
Yes.
And then the next Friday or whatever day is convenient for the teacher and the scholars, do the second act scenarios. And then the following Friday, maybe present that and go through for the discussion. I like
Exactly.
that because we have our Fridays are open for stuff like this.
Excellent. Excellent. So far, so good. We've done the first part. And so next week, actually this past Friday, we did the second component, which is, I can't even remember. I think it was decision making. And then next week we'll go through it. So educators, if you enjoyed this video on social emotional learning, please like, comment, and subscribe and hit the notification bell so you can be notified when our next video is released.
Also, let us know in the comments, do you also take care of social emotional learning activities in your classrooms? And if so, what products or applications do you guys use?
Okay, educators, thank you for joining us and enjoy your teacher life.
Have a great day.